He looked me dead in the eye, shook my hand, and said, "It's nothing personal." Then hired his nephew, a guy who couldn't even spell Excel right. Before I begin, I just ask one thing. Stay with me through this, because what happened changed everything. And show your support by liking, subscribing, and sharing it with your loved one. When I first joined the company, it was nothing special. Just a small office, a few old computers, and a team that didn't know where things were headed. But I saw potential. I worked hard every single day, built the system from scratch, trained new staff, and handled problems no one else wanted to touch. I stayed late when others left early. I skipped vacations. I gave it everything I had. And slowly, it started to pay off. The company began to grow. New clients came in, profits went up, and the office got bigger. But through it all, my boss was the one taking the credit for everything I did. He would stand in front of the board and talk like he built the entire operation. Like I was just another face in the crowd. I didn't complain. I thought maybe one day he would recognize my effort. Maybe a raise, a promotion, or even a thank you. But I was wrong. One Monday morning, everything started to change. My boss introduced someone new to the team, his nephew, Derek. From the moment I saw him, I knew he wasn't here to learn. He wore an expensive suit, had that smug look on his face, and shook my hand like he was doing me a favor. My boss said he was there to learn the ropes. But it was clear Derek didn't care about learning anything. He came in late almost every day, always holding a coffee he didn't finish. He sat in meetings scrolling through his phone. When I tried to teach him the system, he ignored half of what I said. He asked stupid questions, but not because he didn't know, because he didn't want to know. He thought the job was beneath him, that it was all too easy. But the truth was, he didn't understand even the basics. Still, my boss treated him like royalty, gave him a private office, bought him a brand new laptop, started inviting him to client calls and strategy meetings I wasn't even told about. It was like everything I built was being handed over to a clown in a suit just because he shared a last name. At first, I told myself to be patient, that Derek would get bored and leave. But the longer he stayed, the more I realized something. This wasn't temporary. My boss wasn't just helping family. He was planning something. I could see it in the way he looked at me, like I didn't matter anymore, like my time was running out. And I was right. I followed every order, no matter how unfair it felt. I trained Derek like I was told, even though he didn't take anything seriously. While I explained systems and processes, he played on his phone or stared out the window. I kept my tone professional, held my patience, and did my job. But every day, it got harder to ignore his behavior. He'd disappear for hours in the middle of the day, always with some weak excuse. He flirted openly with interns, cracked jokes during meetings, and treated the office like his personal playground. No one dared say anything, and I started to understand why. He wasn't just a new hire. He was untouchable. At first, I kept my head down. I told myself it wasn't my fight. I was just doing what I was paid to do. But deep down, I knew something was off. Derek wasn't just lazy. He was watching me, asking strange questions, taking notes on things I hadn't taught him. I'd catch him staring at my screen from behind when he thought I wouldn't notice. Still, I said nothing. I didn't want to make it seem like I was paranoid, but I should have trusted my gut. One morning, I came in earlier than usual. The lights were off, but I saw a faint glow from my office. I walked in quietly, heart already pounding, and there he was, Derek, sitting at my desk, typing fast. I froze for a second. He didn't even flinch. He looked up, smiled like nothing was wrong, and kept working. I asked him what he was doing, but he didn't answer. I saw the USB drive in the side of the computer. He was copying files, my files. Everything I had worked on, organized, and protected. Before I could say anything else, he pulled the drive out, stood up, and said, "Just backing things up. In case you get hit by a bus or something." Then he walked right past me like it was nothing. I stood there for a long time after he left. Something about his tone, his smirk, the way he acted like he owned everything, it stayed with me. I didn't know what he took, or how long he'd been doing it. But I had a feeling it was more than just one USB drive. The next day, my boss called me into his office. No warning, no signs, just a blank expression and a single sentence. "We're moving in a different direction." I asked if I had done something wrong. He shook his head and said it was just time for a change. That was it. No reason, no goodbye, no thank you. Just silence. I walked out of the building feeling hollow. I wasn't just fired, I was erased. Cut off like I never mattered. The systems I built, the people I trained, the time I gave, none of it meant anything. I passed Derek on my way out. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. That smug smile on his face told me everything I needed to know. He got what he wanted, but he had no idea what he had just started. I didn't sleep the first few nights. I stared at the ceiling in the dark, replaying every moment, every word, wondering how it all unraveled so quickly. 10 years of loyalty, late nights, weekends sacrificed, and it all ended with a short sentence and a door closing behind me. I kept thinking maybe I'd get a call. Maybe someone would realize it was a mistake. But no one called. No one checked in. My phone stayed silent. The bills didn't. They kept showing up like clockwork. Rent, utilities, the car payment I'd never missed. I tried applying to every opening I could find, even ones far below my experience. Each interview started off polite, but I could feel it in the way they looked at me, like they already knew something I didn't. A few wouldn't even shake my hand. I started to notice the pattern, the awkward pauses, the emails that never came back. It wasn't just bad luck. People talk. Offices are quiet, but rumors spread fast. I didn't need to be there to know what they were saying. He snapped, someone probably said. He couldn't handle pressure. Maybe they said I'd been acting strange, that I had problems. It didn't matter if any of it was true. Once those whispers start, they stick. And Derek, well, he made sure they did. He moved fast after I was gone. Took over my projects, renamed the files, probably told people he fixed what I'd left broken. I saw a photo of him online, standing at the front of a company event, smiling like he owned the place, using the same slides I once made. Same colors, same format. He didn't change a thing. He didn't need to. No one knew they weren't his ideas. But there was one thing he didn't know. The system I built, the one they all used every day, ran on a foundation they never saw. Most people assumed it just worked, like magic. But under all those neat reports and dashboards was a piece of code only I understood. A safeguard. It wasn't malicious, just a lock, one that required a key. Something small buried deep. But without it, well, things would start falling apart slowly. It was designed for emergencies. I never thought I'd use it. But now, watching someone else wear my work like a costume, I remembered why I wrote it in the first place. Not to hurt the company, but to make sure no one stole what wasn't theirs. I didn't activate anything right away. I wasn't rushing for revenge. I wanted to see how long they'd pretend. How long Derek could keep pretending to be something he wasn't. But I also knew time was ticking. The system would hold for a while. Then cracks would show. Reports wouldn't load. Numbers wouldn't match. Clients would start asking questions. And Derek, with all his charm and stolen knowledge, wouldn't have the answers. They thought they buried me, but they buried the wrong man. I logged in one night, heart pounding. The admin panel still worked. A backdoor I had designed years ago when we first launched the internal system. It wasn't visible on any surface-level report. No one even remembered it existed. Except me. It wasn't meant for sabotage. It was meant for emergencies, to fix things fast when everything went wrong. Now, it had become something else. A quiet place where I could watch everything unfold without leaving a trace. From that window, I saw the real picture. Derek wasn't managing anything. Deadlines were slipping. Communication logs were a mess. The system was bloated with errors he didn't even notice. He looked confident during video calls, but behind the scenes, files were going missing, data wasn't syncing, and key clients were starting to grow frustrated. I didn't need to lift a finger. He was already in over his head. But watching wasn't enough. Not anymore. I didn't go in guns blazing. That would have been too obvious, too quick. I wanted them to feel it slowly, the way I had felt it. Not a storm, but a steady leak. So I began with small moves. A file that wouldn't reach its destination on time. A backup that failed silently in the background. A report that showed incorrect figures by just a few decimal points. Just enough to make someone ask questions. Nothing that could be traced. Nothing that screamed sabotage. Just quiet doubt. Derek tried to cover the gaps, but he didn't understand the architecture. He didn't know which files were supposed to trigger which processes. He had the presentation, but not the foundation. I watched him send out quick-fix emails, make frantic changes, and shift blame when things broke. And all the while, the higher-ups began noticing something wasn't right. Support tickets started stacking up. Clients reached out more frequently, confused, annoyed. Staff turnover increased. Derek looked more tired in every new meeting recording I found. He wasn't sleeping much. He started delegating everything, trying to stay afloat while acting like he was in control. I knew that look. He was drowning, but I never wanted to burn it all down. That company, flawed as it was, had people who didn't deserve to be caught in the wreckage. This wasn't revenge on them. This was about Derek, about showing the truth. He wore my work like a stolen suit, strutted through my blueprints as if he had written them. But now the threads were coming loose, and he couldn't stop it. Every glitch, every delay, every confused email was like a whisper in someone's ear. This man doesn't know what he's doing. And soon, someone would finally listen. It wasn't enough to watch Derek fail. People needed to know why he was failing. That it wasn't just bad luck or growing pains. It was him. And I knew the board wouldn't take action based on rumors or hunches. They needed documentation, patterns, something official to shake them from their comfort. So I became their ghost. Not vengeful, but calculated. Every message I sent was detailed, clean, and dripping with truth. I created an anonymous persona, not just a faceless whistleblower, someone believable. I gave them a role, a tone, a voice that matched someone deep within the company. I used the same phrases we used in internal meetings, referenced private systems, inside jokes, even frustration with certain policies, the kind of small details only a real employee would know. That made it real. That made it dangerous. The first report was simple. I highlighted discrepancies in project budgets. Nothing too bold, just enough to get attention. The second message exposed communication breakdowns between departments. I slipped in subtle questions. Why are we losing long-term clients? Why are deadlines being missed but reported as complete? I knew the board would read those lines twice. Then I waited. Whispers turned into meetings. Casual emails became formal memos. I could tell things were shifting. The board started requesting Derek's internal reports more often. I noticed changes in who was being copied on communication threads. Meetings became shorter, sharper, less friendly. Derek, already under pressure, began snapping. I wasn't even touching the system anymore. I didn't have to. His lies were catching up to him, and the people around him were feeling it. Managers were blamed for mistakes they didn't make. Teams were scolded for delays they couldn't control. He yelled in meetings, started holding sudden one-on-ones. People left work angry, confused, and anxious. The company's tone changed overnight. Those who once smiled at their desks now whispered in corners. People stopped sharing ideas. Collaboration froze. I read the body language through camera footage and hallway screenshots. Tension was in the air. It spread like wildfire, and Derek couldn't see it for what it was. He blamed everyone but himself. He thought if he barked loud enough, people would fall in line. But they didn't. They watched him spiral. His fake confidence wore off. His polished speeches didn't match the chaos around them. And behind it all, my ghost kept whispering. Not loud, not obvious, just enough to guide the spotlight in the right direction. I didn't create the cracks. I just made sure the light could find them. The audit didn't come suddenly. It was the result of quiet build-up, whispers that turned into alarm bells too loud to ignore. I knew once the right eyes began digging, they'd find everything. And they did. Slowly, methodically, like bloodhounds on a scent. The moment they called for an internal investigation, I stepped back completely. My job was done. The seeds were already growing roots. Investigators combed through months of reports, inboxes, and system log. At first, Derek tried to cooperate, offering his version of events. But the numbers didn't match his words. Some contracts were missing signatures. Others had been duplicated with minor tweaks and rerouted through fake departments. It wasn't just mismanagement, it was fraud. The company had bled money for months without realizing it, and now the leaks were exposed. They kept digging. What started as a check into budgeting spiraled into a full trace of internal workflow. Every corner Derek had tried to hide and was suddenly under the spotlight. Then came the buried records, old logs from years ago, long thought deleted. That's when my name resurfaced. They found a signature embedded in the system, a digital fingerprint from a protocol I had written long ago. It wasn't incriminating. In fact, it did the opposite. It proved that I had once tried to implement a failsafe, something to prevent exactly this kind of misuse. The protocol had been ignored, then overwritten, and eventually deleted. But digital ghosts don't die easy. My work remained, deep in the archives, waiting to be seen again. The board didn't say my name out loud, but I know they saw it. I know they realized I wasn't the villain they were told I was. I wasn't unstable. I wasn't reckless. I was the one trying to protect the system, and they had let the wrong person tear it apart. Derek's panic grew. He denied. He deflected. But the files didn't lie. Neither did the timestamps or the trails left behind. Every shortcut he took, every decision he made to fake his way into power, was now laid bare. His charm was gone. His stories unraveled. People he once bossed around now looked at him like a stranger. The empire he tried to steal was turning against him, brick by brick, and I didn't even have to be in the room. I waited until the dust had settled just enough, when confusion turned into curiosity and the board was hungry for answers. That's when I struck. I sent a single message through an encrypted server to the company's internal review committee. No name, no sender, just a subject line, origin. The file attached wasn't dramatic. It was clinical, cold, designed to leave no room for doubt. I didn't tell a story. I gave them proof. Detailed logs, access timestamps, file name changes, and back-end record. Derek's pattern was all there. When he logged into my system, how he renamed files to pass them as his own, which client contracts he redirected, and where he pulled the stolen templates from. I even included a comparison between my original versions and his altered ones, side by side. You didn't have to be a tech expert to see the theft. But I didn't stop at code and contracts. I included screenshots from internal systems, ones he shouldn't have had access to. Meeting logs where he referenced information he had no clearance for. Patterns that clearly showed his climb wasn't just luck or skill. It was built on stolen foundation. Mine. The board read it. I knew they would. Not because I demanded attention, but because silence speaks louder when it's backed by evidence. No angry rants. No demands for justice. Just a file. Just the truth. And the truth did the rest. Within hours, internal messages circulated among executives. Emergency meetings were scheduled. Derek didn't know yet. He was still parading around like the crown belonged to him. But people were watching him differently now. Quieter. Calculating. The final blow came swiftly. No announcement, no warm goodbye. Just an abrupt removal from the system and a short notice to all staff. Derek Mason is no longer affiliated with this company. We wish him well. That was it. But I wasn't finished watching. The next day, my old boss, the one who brought Derek in, the one who pretended I was just a replaceable cog, he vanished too. Not fired. He resigned. The kind of resignation that comes when you're given a closed-door warning. Leave now or be dragged. I could picture it. Him sitting in a silent room, staring at the evidence, realizing that trusting his nephew had cost him everything. Reputation, position, control. No press release. No farewell party. Just silence. It wasn't revenge that satisfied me. It was the stillness afterward. The way the storm settled. The way truth finally stood tall without needing my name attached to it. I didn't need credit. I didn't need applause. All I needed was for the lie to die. And it did. Time has a strange way of working when the truth finally takes its place. The company I once built from the ground up, the one that discarded me like a broken tool, had become a cautionary tale. And while their halls echoed with silence and damaged pride, my phone began to ring again, not with apologies, but with offers. One stood out. It wasn't just any offer. It came from a rival, a competitor so fierce. They were once the reason we doubled our hours and sharpened our system. They had always been the bar we tried to reach. And now they were reaching out to me. They didn't want an interview. They wanted a meeting. I flew out the next morning. Their building was sleek, modern, a symbol of everything that had once been out of reach. But as I walked through the doors, something felt different. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I had already done that. The boardroom was full. Sharp suits. Focused eyes. They already knew the story. Not the whispers and rumors, but the real version, the buried one that I had quietly written. They saw not just a man who had been betrayed, but someone who had survived the storm and stood up taller afterward. They offered me the role of director of system. Not manager. Not assistant. Director. I accepted. Walking into that office, setting my laptop down on the polished desk, I felt something shift, not just in the air, but inside me. I wasn't coming back. I was leveling up. The very first week, I requested a list of former employees. Not from this company, but from my old one. I remembered every loyal worker, every teammate who had stayed late with me, the ones who were never part of Derek's little circle, the ones who were overlooked after I left. I contacted them one by one. Carefully, quietly. Some had already left after I was fired. Others were barely hanging on. A few didn't even let me finish the sentence before saying, "Where do I sign?" It wasn't just about building a new team. It was about restoring what was lost, without the rot. These people weren't just co-workers. They were the heartbeat of everything we had once tried to create. This time, they would be rewarded for it. We didn't speak of the past much. There was no need. Everyone remembered. Instead, we worked. Efficiently, silently, and soon, results spoke louder than anything else. Our systems outpaced the old companies by miles. Clients noticed. Some even returned, no questions asked. What they took from me, I rebuilt. Stronger, smarter. And I didn't need revenge to do it. I just needed a second chance. And this time, I was ready. I never waited for an apology. I knew it wouldn't come. People like them don't say sorry. They just vanish when the lies stop working. But I didn't need their words. What I got in return was far more valuable. I had influence now. Not in some flashy, attention-seeking way. Quiet power. The kind that doesn't beg to be seen. It simply shifts things when it moves. I had a team who believed in me, a system that ran like a machine, and a reputation that had turned from wrongfully fired to essential. Word eventually got around about my ex-boss. He tried to scrape something together. A startup, some recycled ideas, desperate investors. But the industry remembered. No one followed him. No one backed him. His name had become a warning sign, a story whispered in conference rooms as an example of what happens when loyalty is traded for shortcuts. And Derek, well, the world had no more favors to give him. Last update I got from someone who knew someone. He was working at a fast food chain, barely recognized, trying to stay under the radar. The smirk he once wore like armor? Gone. As for me, I never celebrated. I didn't raise a glass or throw a party. That's not how closure worked. Instead, I kept a single folder on my desktop, tucked away, barely noticeable, titled, Never Forget. Inside, there's one log entry, the last one I ever wrote while working for them. Not for revenge, not for bitterness. Just a reminder, a digital scar that reminds me who I was, what they did, and how I rose from it. Because not every betrayal ends with forgiveness. Some end with silence, others with collapse. And a few, like mine, end with a quiet kind of justice. One they never saw coming. Do you think I did the right thing by exposing them, or should I have just walked away and let karma handle it? I'd love to know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if stories like this keep you hooked, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss what comes next.